Hi everyone, this is my extra credit submission for week 11. I'm going to kind of be reflecting on the article, What's the Story? Reflections on White Privilege and the Publication of Children's Books. The author, Laura Atkins, is a white author and previously an editor at two major publishing companies, where when she was there, she worked in the multicultural division. So she worked with a lot of authors who were not white, or as she says, of color, throughout the article. And so throughout the article, she's kind of examining the role that white people play in the dynamics of racism and the dynamics of the books that are being published. And kind of going along with that, she briefly mentions Tim Wise, who recently came to Michigan State University and spoke, and discusses the white privilege. And she says, like Tim Wise and another critic, believe that white people are able to live their lives with unfair advantages while having very little understanding of or willingness to accept that this white privilege exists. I think this is very true, from the discussion he had previously at MSU and just the research and knowledge I've gained from being at Michigan State, and my own personal life experiences. I can see how white privilege, A, does exist in our society, and B, how it does impact other cultures and other races negatively, just through the color of our skin and being white and being the majority. We do have a greater pull on the views and what's published and what's produced and what is given to the masses, and how the norm is targeted and is developed to like the white, what the white people want. That sounds bad, but that's the truth. So with that, it talks about how does the white privilege affect types of books chosen to be published, and how that affects the books that are being placed not only in the community libraries but in our schools for teachers, and how teachers select books. So I really liked how she used real examples in the article of when she was an editor, um, about a book. It was called Deshawn's Dilemma, which after alterations was then titled Deshawn's Days. And the book was transformed. Now, the word transformation, when I hear it, I often think of a negative thing turning into a positive, or something bad to something good. And with this, the transformation was negative. It lessened the authenticity of the book, the accuracy of the book, and just the overall feeling and the quality of the piece, because there was a poem in there about drugs, or a pipe of some sort, and the publishing company thought that it was too negative and that it was kind of taboo, and suburbs or suburban life wouldn't be accepting of it, whereas it would be normal for urban schools. So they asked him to write a happy poem, which kind of lessened the authenticity of the book. Not that Deshawn couldn't have happy days, but the whole idea was to give the kids who grew up in the Bronx, who grew up, in the projects, a book that reflected them, that said, this is life, this is what we know, this is our normal, and that's okay. Because when they're reading books of suburban life and they can't relate, and they might think what their life is wrong, or it's not normal, or it is really negative, when this book, Deshawn's Days, could have been produced completely accurate the way the author wanted. It could have been a voice to the kids that saying, hey, I grew up here too. I know this. I know that, you do hear sirens. You do see people doing drugs sometimes that could be kind of scary, but it's just comforting enough that they know someone else had this experience, someone else came from where I'm coming from, and someone else made something of themselves, and that's a positive. And it's just something to celebrate their community, because not everything about the Bronx was bad. He talks about hopscotch, he talks about jumping rope, double dutch, the positive things that come from being in a community like that also. So the biggest thing from the publishing company and from the author, he said he believed that the children living in the environment need to see their reality accurately represented in children's books. With children who did not come from this experience should not be overly protected from the realities of the world. I think that's huge, and I think that's something that we've talked a lot about in our class too, that just because children may not be exposed to what happens outside of their communities or outside of their schools doesn't mean it's not happening. And if they can watch it in shows and in movies, why can't they read about it, and why can't it not be discussed in a safe, controlled environment such as the classroom? So I personally agree with the author of Deshaun's Days when he says children should not be overly protected from experiences that they may not have themselves, because children who do possibly experience a more um, negative things that can happen in life that are real and accurate, um, they should have a book that they can relate to, and it's okay. It's okay to grow up around, it's not okay to, it's okay to like have those experiences and to see that going on. But people can grow on both sides from a book like this being published. So that's kind of what the article was getting at, and that's what I wanted to talk about.